Hello, everyone. Welcome to my channel. I'm Agnes Low, professional corporate trainer and Gallup strength coach. Today, I'm very happy to have someone coming from Malaysia. And he's my very dear friend. For many years, over 13 years, we learn together. We have fun traveling to different countries, learning from the same teachers. I think first time I met him probably was in a class in Brunei. And then afterward, we went to the state, California, to go for some mastermind program. And then different classes in the past years. And we still keep in touch. He is from Malaysia. And now I'm in Canada. And I'm very happy to see his personal happiness because of he is also a life learner and always empower people. This special friend is Dr. Sivakumar Kumaresan. And he is the American Board of NLP Certified NLP Trainer, Associate Professor of Chemical Engineering at Universiti, Malaysia, Sabah, PhD in Herbal Processing. Very interesting background, and I know he loves what he is doing. Let me welcome Siva. I always call him Siva. He like us call him Siva. And let's welcome Siva, and please introduce yourself. Thank you, Siva, coming to my channel.
Thanks, Agnes, for inviting me. You're the very first person I'm doing this sort of interviews with. It's really interesting for me. So some introduction for myself. My name is Siva, and I've got a mixed background. I teach at the university. I'm an academic. But at the same time, I've always had this passion about human beings. I was curious about what makes people happy and how can they function better. And I got introduced to something called NLP, or Neuro-Linguistic Programming. And what got me curious about this was they claim that if we understood the human mind and we run it properly, we can actually achieve a lot of things as well as experience a lot of very positive emotions. And so I got interested in NLP and took my first course in 1996. And one of the interesting things about NLP is they claim that if you can model or copy someone's skill, if you know what the exact things they do, you can actually duplicate it. And one of the things that I got curious about all these years was about flow, about like how people are in either very high positive states of emotions, plus they can achieve a lot. And I read this book, Agnes and I were talking about it. It's called Flow, The Psychology of Happiness, by this professor that just passed away. His name was Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi. And he'd studied about how people have these peak experiences. And I realized when I read the book, I can actually apply the NLP approach to it. Like, I figured out there's about 6 major things that people do that make them get into flow.
Wow, so this is the reason you chose this topic, getting into flow with NLP. Wow, I always use this term to describe a positive way to in life if we have follow the flow good to accomplish something. But honestly, it's quite abstract. I think this is a great chance to have you to be an expert in NLP and also using this to really explain to us how getting into flow with NLP. So Siva, why don't you share with us your experience?
Okay, for me, for instance, I was just sharing with Agnes earlier that one of the great things about this year is that because of the changes of work, I actually enjoy my work a lot more because I'm doing more things that I like. So actually in a day, I get into flow at least 2 or 3 times. And I think it's important for everyone to look at it this way. Like, since you're going to spend the time, why don't you enjoy it, right? And using flow has actually been quite powerful for me. And I think for everyone who's listening, the best way to think about it is like, can you reflect back on like when you had a really, really powerful experience, like when you were doing something really difficult, but then you found really easy and you enjoyed it. So it could be a sports, or reading a book, or when you were listening to music and you just really enjoyed it, or you were trying to do something difficult like planning or some complicated math, or maybe some business planning. And yet at that moment, because you're in the right state of mind, everything just went easily. And that's basically what we call flow. It's when you're facing a challenging situation, but you don't feel challenged. And it normally happens when you're slightly pushing yourself beyond the edge. One example is like when you're driving your car, but you're driving slightly faster than you can comfortably drive, and you have to really pay attention. Yeah. Okay. So that's what kind of flow is to me, Agnes. Yeah.
Okay. So when I heard you say every day you experience a few times of flow, then I can feel that how you're aware of this as like part of your life, and then when you feel this, and then you can catch it, and then make use of that kind of mindset to function. It's almost like this. When I heard you say, it's like you can experience a few times of flow, and definitely this must be something positive. Yeah, I like you to train me how to getting into flow with the NLP.
I mean, I can share with you. But while you're on that topic, there's two elements. Actually, you brought up one of it. One of it is because you get familiar with the feeling. So when it happens naturally, you go with it. So when I notice my mind is getting easier to flow, then I try and do the work that needs that type of mindset or that type of mind. So some part of it is catching when you're getting into flow naturally, and then doing things. But the other thing is you can train yourself to trigger flow as well. So for instance, for us, one of the tennis players that you used to watch a long time ago is this guy named Ivan Lendl from Czechoslovakia. And Ivan Lendl had this habit of every time before he served, he bounced the ball 3 times. And that's how he triggered himself to get to the state before he did the serve. And so for all of us, you may have certain habits like you clean your room, or you listen to music, or you do certain breathing, then or you challenge yourself a certain way, and then suddenly it wakes you up. As I explain it, if you start recognizing which one it is, then just note it down, because that's the trigger that you use to get yourself into flow. So for me, funnily, one of them is this, coffee.
So that is a trigger. What is the difference between anchor and trigger?
Actually, it's the same thing. So for those of you who are NLP trained, when I say trigger, I basically mean an anchor. Yeah. So for everyone watching, I'm going to share with you guys 2 slides. After reading the book, I realized there's 6 things that happens when you get into flow. And if you can recognize how you do each of these, you can actually make it happen more often. So exactly like what Agnes says, once you can feel it, you can do it. So the very first thing about flow is that it normally happens when your challenge matches your skill. So if we're talking about a game, it's like when your level of skill matches your opponent. But the interesting thing is, the moment your challenge is higher than your skill, you get overwhelmed and you give up. Or the challenge is lower than your skill, you get bored. But mentally, actually, we can change it. This is the thing that I want to teach everyone, which is, let's say the challenge, the person you're playing is much better than you. Then you change the challenge to yourself. Your challenge isn't to beat him or her. Your challenge is just to be able to run to the same corner of the court. And the moment you change your focus to a different challenge, you can get back into flow. The other thing is, if the opponent is too easy for you, then you find a way to make it more difficult. So for instance, if it's a work thing, can you do it faster? If it's a game thing, can you do it in a more difficult way? Like if you've got a very strong forehand, can you do it with your backhand instead for every shot? Or can you get it more precise that you make your opponent run all over the place where you want them to go? So you change the challenge to make it more difficult for you. So this is one thing I think everyone should realize, that when you're bored, you can change it. When you're challenged, you can change it. So this way, whatever you're doing, you're more engaged. The second thing is actually, for all those people who go through motivation or coaching or whatever, we always talk about like having a clear goal, right? And this is one of the really amazing things about being human. Have you ever noticed that when you're kind of fuzzy in the morning, but the moment you make your to-do list, you get more awake and focused? So flow actually needs us to have a focus, even if the focus is just on like, okay, I just want to enjoy this moment, or I just want to do this, or I want to taste the coffee properly. But the moment you switch on to I want something, you actually switch on the flow activity, because there's a part of our brain that actually focuses on getting something done. The third part is, and all of these actually apply in NLP. When you talk about this, is about clear goal setting or clear outcomes. The third part is about fast feedback, meaning that when you're in flow, you notice faster whether you're getting what you want or whether you're not. And the fastest way to kind of explain this to everyone is, as you're doing what it is that you're doing, can you just pay attention to the feedback? So if it's the ball, the sound, the direction it's coming from. If it's the work, it could even just be the feedback or the feeling of your pen on the paper. But paying attention to what you're doing actually deepens your flow. So that's why
that
in
is
the current...
Be present, right? Just like
exactly.
Be present. Okay.
Being present actually triggers a lot of flow. So the current world that we live in with a lot of distractions, especially electronic, it's challenging. So we kind of need to create a work or a enjoyment space where there's less distractions, or where you can train yourself to ignore it. The fourth one is a kind of a funny one, which is when you're in flow, you don't think so much, but you know what to do. Okay, and if you're coming from an NLP point of view, what I'll tell you is that it's that feeling that you have when you turn down the volume of the voice of you talking to yourself in your head, and you just start paying attention to the feeling in your body. So flow also happens when you can shift your attention more towards your body and your breathing, which is also linked to the being present and being aware of your environment. So they're all interlinked, but this sense of knowing when you're more paying attention to your body, your mind has more time to give you the right idea at the right time. So one analogy that I like to use is like when you're driving your car and you have the windscreen wiper for rain, you can't see any of the raindrops hitting the screen, but if you slow it down, new ideas and new inspirations come in. And slowing down comes from paying attention to the body. Okay, so that's the fourth one. The fifth one and the sixth one are kind of interrelated. One of it is, have you ever noticed that you can think about yourself either through looking through your own eyes or watching yourself? In NLP, we call it associated or disassociated. And actually, when you're looking through things from your own eye, it's very personal. You feel it, you feel the emotions, you think it's you. But when you disassociate, meaning you're watching yourself, it's you don't think things personally. So like you make a mistake, it's okay. You just do the next thing better. And when you're in flow, you switch easily between both. You're between watching it from your own eyes and watching yourself. And both are necessary. And if you can do it in a relaxed way, you don't take things too seriously. And the last one is the one that I really enjoy the most, which is actually about time dilation. And for this one, I'm just going to close the camera. Sorry, the screen. Okay. I hope you guys can see my eyes. So sorry, I've got small Chinese eyes. My mom is Cantonese. So one of the things about being human is actually all of us learned how to read. And have you ever noticed that to read, you have to focus on a small black letters on a white piece of paper? So we learned how to have this very sharp point focus. And in fact, when you have the sharp point focus, your mind moves faster. But if you remember, the other thing that happens about being human is that we all enjoy going to the beach or up in the hills or in the wide open spaces. And one of the things that happens, like when you're climbing up the mountain and you suddenly look at the open space, suddenly your eyes open up and you see a wider space and your body just kind of softens. And normally, when we have that wide open space time slows down. And for people who do martial arts, they also say the same thing. You have the soft gaze where you open up and then you can see which part of your opponent's shoulders is going to twitch to hit you first. So you can deliberately slow down your time by the way you move your eyes. If you focus on a single point, it speeds up. If you focus open, it slows down.
Okay, so I use my wide lens.
Yes,
in my camera, my camera, I want to go to my wide lens, then it will really capture and also be a little bit not that only focused to one point. Okay, yeah.
So for flow, these are the elements, and actually the moment you can recognize each of these, and the next time you get into flow, you'll notice that all these 6 things are there. The more you notice, the more it's going to happen. It's just one of those familiarization of the body and the mind thing. So this is kind of what we call the 6 elements of flow that I figured out so far. And I've used it to train my clients. I've worked with musicians, dancers, golfers, and also people who are like in the corporate environment as well. It also works in a work context. And they all found that they can get into flow more often once they realize what the paths are.
So what were the benefits Well,
flow.
what was their testimonial that they feel that, wow, this really helped our productivity or anything? Share with us.
For the musician, it was interesting because for her, when she gets into flow, we found out the trigger, which is a violinist. The trigger was actually when she holds the violin to the neck. And if she does it exactly, there's the correct feeling here. And as she starts getting into that emotion and mental state, she actually literally sees the stage change. She cannot see the audience, and the stage gets bigger. And her sense of hearing changes. For the dancer, she was working on becoming a better choreographer. And she realized when she's in flow, she can switch points of view between her own, the audience, and the fellow dancers with her. And she can see the movie of how it plays out. But one of the things that happens for her in flow, unlike her teacher can see the whole sequence from beginning to end and then execute. For her case, she had to do by learning, doing. So she creates the steps as she does. So they had very different creativity strategy, but because she was in flow, she can access it much better. And for the golfer, it was just that he became more consistent on his shots. He started being able to get better score by then. For golfers, I think the number goes smaller as they perform better. Yeah. So that's what happened with them. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I have a lot of audience in different walks of life. And how about students? How can you help students if they are in flow?
Actually, for students, the other big thing, Agnes, is that, because you and I are teachers. Yeah. So there's this thing called accelerated learning, but basically it's things that we do to be able to remember and understand things easier. If you get into flow more frequently, it doesn't have to be with studies. You'll find that after the flow experience, you tend to be able to learn faster. Because flow helps integrate the connections between the different parts of the brain. And also flow tends to trigger off a lot of creativity.
Wonderful. This is important.
Yeah. So for students, it definitely helps. So in fact, for parents, sometimes I give them contradictory advice because they're worried their kids are not spending enough time studying. But I tell them that you have to let your kids play or exercise more, and then they'll study less, but they'll study better. Yeah. So we're testing it with our kid. She goes to tennis 4 times a week. And so far, her studies seem to be very good. She's more motivated as well. She's more happy. So it's a test. I'll tell you in a year. It's currently we're going through a testing phase.
Yeah, ultimate goal, we want the kids be more happy and then learning better. Yeah. So that's great. So is there any other your personal life experience you'd like to share? How you experience the flow that brings you more business, maybe?
Okay. There's 2 parts. One thing is actually when I did my NLP trainers training, one of the things is, remember you talk about the anchor, right?
Yes.
So we anchored a very powerful emotional state into this particular knuckle of mine, which is determination, clarity, and resourcefulness, all at the same time. So what happens normally is before I start training, I trigger it off. And because I start feeling good, and once I see my participants, I start really getting the creative ideas what to do with them on the spot. I have an outline of what I want to cover, but how I cover it is very dependent on the circumstances. So the stories, the activities, the interactions change. So one way this increases my business is I don't train the same way every time. And my participants are getting a lot more out of me because I'm very, very engaged with them. So in terms of business, that helps. The other thing that is funny is if I can get my participants into flow while we're training, they learn faster as well. So actually, it feeds on each other. We both enjoy the process, and I'm actually energized at the end of the training sessions. Yeah.
How do you get your participants to be in the flow?
Few ways. One of the very first things is like what our mentor and I, my mentor has done to you and I, is at the very beginning of sessions, I always ask them like, what's their intention for today? And I'll share with them what is mine. And then we come up with a common one that we want to achieve. And then I also deliberately ask them, okay, look, today we're going to cover this topic. I need you guys to be in these particular emotions because these are good for you. So they already have a kind of a goal. And we joke a lot. I tell them a lot of like funny stories just to make them laugh because humor gets us into flow. Because when you're in a humorous state, you see things in a funny ways. It kind of triggers off the creativity and the openness as well.
Yeah,
So that's some of the things I do.
I think I get you, especially when you say the humor. Presentation is always add some humor in speech or something can lighten up. Once we are more relaxed, I think the flow will show up and then people will be more engaged. Thank you so much, Siva, for this sharing. What would you like to summarize as using flow in our life?
I think the easiest thing to do is more like this. Like, first thing is just notice when any of those 6 things happen. The challenge equals skill, the clear outcome, the fast feedback, the sense of knowing things or being impersonal, and also changing time. The more you notice it, the more easy you're going to get into flow. But the other thing is just ask yourself this question, like, if you could enjoy your life daily more, what would happen? Yeah. So maybe that's the 2 things I'd like to leave with everyone. Yeah.
Oh, good. This is a very good, thought-provoking question that we can always ponder and then have more thoughts about it. So thank you so much for your sharing. Anything that you like to share about your service? Perhaps maybe there are someone need your service as well.
Just in case any of you are from Malaysia, I do run face-to-face NLP trainings. I'll be running one in the end of June, from June 27th to July 2nd. But I also do run an online NLP course, and I've had people all around the world, from Korea to Singapore to the United Kingdom, who've attended. So if you're interested to do an online NLP course, which will take about 3 months, it's a 1 day a week, I am happy to share. And the last thing that I do is I just got certified as an ICF coach as well. So I also do personal coaching for life coaching. But I do combine it with NLP. So if anyone has any issues you want to clear or any goals you want to achieve, I can help you with that. Yeah. Thank you, Agnes.
Definitely. Yeah, I know you, and it's really very, very much trust that I know your personality and your ability that really can empower people and change people's life by your example. My channel is about power of gratitude. You'd like to share your gratefulness, please.
Actually, like you said, actually quite a bit. But I'm very grateful to my partner because when we got together, both of us, especially me, we're just starting out in a lot of the new things that we're doing, and it's really amazing when you have someone who supports you, how far you can go. So I do appreciate Cruz a lot for what she's supported me the last 4 years. And I think for everyone, do better in my life. The people closest to you, do value them and appreciate them, because they do make a huge difference in your life as well. Yeah.
Yes, that's very important to appreciate our loved ones. Thank you so much for joining me today. I'm sure it will impact different kind of people watching this video. So if you like this video, please give me a thumbs up, turn on the notification bell, and also subscribe my channel. So see you next time. So thank you very much, Siva, for joining me. Bye-bye. Thank you. Bye-bye.